Hello and welcome to the Player to Coach podcast. This is episode 16. We got our boy Cam Schott on the podcast, former director of player operations at Northwest Christian University, Texas A&M assistant video coordinator, then Texas A&M Commerce assistant coach. Now he is currently the assistant coach at Menlo College down in the Bay. And yeah, had a really good conversation with him. Jordan was not able to join us today. Just had some stuff going on with the team. And so kind of had to stay committed to that. So it was just me and Cam today, which was a great conversation, great time. Really appreciate you guys listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or if you guys get to watch on YouTube or even just catch some of our clips on social media. Really appreciate your guys' support. Your guys' viewership, greatly appreciated. Yeah, had a really good conversation with Cam. Dove into kind of why he wanted to kind of jump into a basketball career. Doesn't have an extensive playing career, but you can tell by his attitude, his drive, his willingness to take care of all the little things that he's going to be a great coach one day. I mean, he is a great coach, and you can just tell that any team would be lucky to have somebody like Cam on their team. Does all the little things. We talk a little about sweat equity, building that with your team, gaining trust with the guys. Just a great dude. Really glad that I got a chance to see him get to do his work and, get a chance to follow him from afar. So, thanks for tuning into the podcast, and we really hope you enjoy. And let's welcome to the show, Cam Schott. So Cam, how you doing?
Good, man. Too bad Jordan couldn't make it. I guess he only comes on for the big time guests, so I get it. I get it. But
Yeah,
appreciate you having me, man.
for sure. Yeah, a little bit disrespectful on his part, but we'll let it slide. So I got to meet you my first year at NCU, and we'll kind of get into that in a little bit. Can you just tell us a little bit about your background and your basketball involvement before you got to NCU?
For sure. So obviously it's called Player to Coach Pod, but unfortunately, unlike any other guests you've had, I was not much of a player, so didn't have the opportunity to play in college. Loved the game, was always around it, played it as long as I could, but when it came to college, really wanted to be involved with the team aspect. Wanted to get into some avenue, whether it was journalism or scouting or coaching. I just knew I really wanted to be involved with basketball in any type of ways. So, um, went to school at the University of Oregon. Tried to get involved there, didn't have much success. So, luckily, a school right across the street called Northwest Christian was, right there available. Had an awesome head coach, Luke Jackson, who you played for, and I was lucky enough to work for those 2 years. So um, went across the street, asked if I could work for them. I was brought in that day to practice in the afternoon. Awesome experience to work for Luke. Coach Litz, Coach McCann, and then Eddie was there our second year, and awesome staff to learn from. So was there for 2 years. From there, took off to Texas. Had an opportunity to work at Texas A&M in the video room, and then coached at Texas A&M Commerce for 2 years. Worked for Coach Rose, awesome staff over there. They're transitioning to Division One this upcoming year, and then after that, had a chance to come back home at Menlo College. So we're starting year three. Feels like year two because we didn't have a season during the COVID year, but really excited to be back here and be back home.
I think that's awesome. Yeah. We all experienced that 2020 year. It really is a blink of an eye, and honestly always just forget that it even existed, especially looking back. We're gonna
Yeah.
go back to your NCU days. So you were a manager and player director of operations there. Tell us about your role, kind of how that was at the beginning, kind of how you found your spot and your comfortability there, and then just kind of like what day in the life would look like for you on like a practice or a game day.
For sure, for sure. So when I first got there, the job was pretty plain and simple. Just get the laundry done, and there weren't too many people who were banging down the door just to get that opportunity at a school like NCU, which is a smaller school. Not as much involvement. So that was kind of how it started. They knew that I've been around the game and wanted to get involved. So luckily, Luke was awesome. He kind of let me do whatever I wanted. So I just kept doing more and more and more. So it started with doing laundry and doing the scoreboard at practice. From there, I was starting to break down film after games, and Luke was like, "Hey, this looks pretty good. If you want to keep doing it, we'll keep watching it." So was able to do that. Start breaking down film, kind of us post game and what we've been working on. Once it got to like mid season, I started helping out with the scouting reports, kind of helping out Coach McCann, who was doing a lot of that stuff, and he was always dialed with it. I was just trying to help out however I could. Like, this guy likes to go right to left. This guy likes to step back off right foot. Just trying to find a niche wherever I could add that one little bullet point. So then, by the end of the year, Luke said, "Hey, I got a job for you. If you can make our schedule for next season, our non-conference schedule, I'll bump your title to director of basketball operations." So, got the preseason schedule done. Um, from there, year two, I was doing pretty much all the scouting reports, which was really awesome. I was really fortunate to have a lot of great players who listened and not only accepted coaching but really wanted coaching, especially from that senior class, which was Jay, Jack, Brendan, who you've had on here, and Brad. Then obviously having a couple goats around like Loomis and Jordan and you and all those guys. Really good experience for me to kind of get into the coaching industry without being a great player. So
For sure. That it's crazy the more you talk, the more like you just talk about, yeah, you just added a role here and a role there. All of those are very big things in terms of not only just your time, your effort, focus, all that stuff, but it really contributes to winning in like all the biggest ways. And it's funny, like right as soon as like in high school, like you have team managers, but it's really just a kid who's just kind of there. They don't really do too much. They just kind of carry one thing from one place to the other, and then obviously that role looks way different on the college level. And even for me, having not, obviously been in the college level yet, it's my freshman year. And it's kind of just like, okay, like this guy's like awesome and he's here to help. But like there was so much respect from all of the older guys and from the coaching staff with you. And it was clearly like hey, if there's anything that ever needs to get done, just slap Cam's name on it and he's going to get it done and do it the right way. So I think there's for all the people who don't know the ins and outs of college basketball and don't get to see how valuable it is to have an awesome manager and director of ops, like you play that role perfectly and really kind of sets you up for a holistic vision of what coaching is going to be. Like we had Coach Eddie on here a while back, and he referred to coaching as being, only 5% of it is like on the court in the game, actually coaching basketball. And obviously, there's
yeah.
practice, but there's so much structure and foundation, and all the little things that play a part. And so you kind of get this zoomed out, holistic view of everything that needs to get done. So I'm sure that was super valuable. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think it's really valuable from my experience in the case that most managers at the high major level, like when I was at A&M and seeing what those managers do, I mean, that was just like, get the jerseys done, so much small stuff that was important stuff. But luckily for my experience of being around NCU, I was the only manager. Luke was kind of like, you know, have a run at it. So I'm always thankful I was able to work for Luke for kind of my first job. And like you said, you don't know how much has to get done until you're kind of in it. So I felt like my job was just to make Luke's job, Litz's job, McCann's job as easy as they can, and just let them coach basketball. And then obviously once they could trust me with kind of all that smaller stuff, then your role grows and grows and grows. And next thing you know, you're involved with the basketball stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot that goes on behind the scenes. Sometimes the players don't even see it, but like you said, well, luckily we had a great group that really respected everything that we were trying to do. So got really lucky to be around a lot of great guys that had a lot of respect for what goes on behind the scenes.
For sure. I mean, and you deserved all, every single bit of it. So, just super props to you. And then, kind of like you were saying, the more things you get involved with, the more your role expands and grows. Obviously, the more opportunity that comes from. And then, like you said earlier, you became, video assistant at Texas A&M. Kind of talk us through kind of how that transition had happened, and then how that connection was made, and what that role looked like.
Yeah, so I was very eager after graduating college. You know, a lot of people go backpacking around Europe or, go on a vacation. For me, I was like, I just want to see how the biggest programs operate. So once I graduated from Oregon, after Oregon for 2 years under Luke at NCU, I basically emailed hundreds of Division I coaches, just seeing how can I help? Is there anything I can do? uh, was looking for a GA opportunity. I was looking to volunteer, whatever it took. I just wanted to see, how the biggest programs operate. And like I said, a lot of stuff I was doing was just kind of, I figured it out. And this is how a scout looks, but I don't know how a scout really looks. This is how we broke down film, but I've never really seen it from the highest of levels. So sent out email to like I said, hundreds of coaches across the country. We got really lucky that Alex Lloyd from Texas A&M saw it. I don't know how, I don't know why, but he responded. Was able to go out there and work at camp to meet the staff. And then they said, "Hey, we'd love to have you help out in the video room if this is something you're looking to get into." So, um, yeah, I was able to work there for a year. Was learning basically all the video stuff like sports code, and I mean sports code is probably the biggest one, but most Division I staffs know what I'm talking about. But it was something that NCU, it was all iMovie and Synergy. I'd never really used sports code before, so by the end of the year, I was pretty dialed with that. But no, forever thankful that Alex Lloyd replied to that email. He's now a Division III head coach over in Maine at Bowdoin University, and cool to see his rise through the ranks. So that's how I got involved with A&M. Same way I got involved at NCU, just banging at the door and seeing who would let me in.
That's awesome. Was that the only response that you got from that, or did you get some other responses at all?
I some other responses. They all differed. Some said, maybe. Some said if all types of responses. The majority were no responses, and then the majority of the responses were thanks, but we're full for the upcoming season. Um, so it was one of the few, and obviously got really fortunate that it was at Texas A&M, a team that at that year advanced to the Sweet 16. So really cool opportunity that I'll always be thankful for.
There you go. What were some of the key differences? Obviously, NCU is, if you've never been there, and more likely than not, if you're listening, you probably haven't been there. Is not a very big campus, limited resources, all that good stuff. So, what were some of the key differences, not only in your role, but also just the environment of being at a legit D1 program?
Yeah, funny you should mention. I think the first thing I had to figure out was just like carving a niche, kind of like I did at NCU, but like we kind of said, the role grew and grew and grew. But at A&M, it was just like you got to be the expert at your role. You got to be able to be dialed in all the film stuff. If there's any troubleshooting stuff, you got to know. You're basically almost an IT guy to some degree when it comes to sports code. But like you said, biggest difference just how many people are around the program. NCU, like I said, it was Luke, Litz, me, and McCann year one, and then Eddie was able to help out year two, and that's pretty much it. But you go to a big staff like A&M, we had 6 managers. We had some people who I can't even remember what their official title was, but obviously you have your head coach, 3 assistants. My boss was kind of the head of the film room, but we had me and 2 other guys just working in the film room, trying to get each scout ready, working with each assistant. each assistant basically had their own film guy. So I worked with Isaac Chu primarily, who's now at New Mexico, and learned a lot from him. But it was just very, I wouldn't say it was totally different. Basketball is basketball, but I think the level of expertise and the the amount of, how do I say it? The amount of pride each person kind of took in their individual role was a big deal, and um, that there's a lot of great people to learn from, and at the end of the year, I felt like I was pretty good with sports code, basically.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, you go to a program like that and they have six cams running around and then also have them do film, but then squish all that into one role. Yeah, I think you can, knowing you, I think you can dial up something pretty incredible if you're just focused on that one thing.
Yeah.
So that's pretty sweet. Tell me a little bit about your next role at Texas A&M.
Yes. So then, not to be confused, Texas A&M and Texas A&M Commerce are both in the A&M system, but
Got it.
different
Okay, thank you
schools.
for clarifying.
No, a lot of people get confused. There's a lot of A&Ms like A&M Kingsville or West Texas A&M. So how I got involved with commerce was through my connection in the video room. So Alex Lloyd, who I worked for at A&M, was working some conference. I can't even remember. And he was trying to fix the video for Jarrett Von Rosenberg, who was the head and still is the head coach at Texas A&M Commerce. And he's like, man, like I'm trying to hire a GA who can help me with this stuff. Do you know anyone? So, well, just had a guy work for me who's looking to get a GA spot. And the awesome part about Division II is that GAs can be on the floor. They can recruit. They have a lot of coaching responsibilities. So it's kind of a nice way to get your foot in the door on the floor, because a lot of the stuff I was doing was all behind the scenes, and Commerce was kind of the first time I could be on the floor and coach and instruct. Um, so I was able to talk to Coach Rose through Alex Lloyd, and able to get my master's there. Got really lucky that they were returning a lot of good players. It was Rose's second year at the time. Went to the NCAA tournament that year. Had another awesome staff to work for. Coleman First I think he's got to be the best Division II assistant in the country. Now going Division I. But yeah, so my role there was kind of to do the film that I was previously doing at A&M. So again, finding that role and then building off it. Okay, now I was involved with academics. Now I was involved in recruiting. Now I was on the floor a little more and able to instruct and hop in drills and teach, smaller things. So that's how I got involved in commerce. And again, another great spot, kind of on the path to where I am now.
For sure. Talk to us a little bit about um, if you had any challenges or any difficulty hopping in and actually teaching or instructing, if there was. And I know, early on, even from um, the whole title of this podcast being player to coach, and there being some sort of a transition there, where obviously if you were a player, you can't just be like, hey, let me show you what to do all the time. You actually have to learn to communicate, explain and teach and do all of that. I imagine there's, some hoops to kind of jump through if you don't have, a longer playing career, but obviously having so much background in basketball. Talk to us just a little bit about some of the transitioning phases and being on the court and actually teaching.
For sure, like you said, you don't have kind of that instant credibility, I would say. Like, you talk to Luke and he's like, yeah, I was an NBA lottery pick. You kind of have some instant credibility with the
A little
guys. For
different.
me being, yeah, so for me being like, hey, I was in the video room at A&M, they're kind of like, oh, okay, like that doesn't do anything. So I think kind of the biggest thing you got to do is earn their trust. You got to be in the gym with them all the time. You got to be able to help them with small stuff. Hey, like, this is what I'm seeing. Pull up a clip. Be like, this is what coach was talking about. You got to do this. And try to earn more sweat equity with them. Be the last one in there rebounding with them. Be the first one in there. Text them, see if they want to get in the gym, whatever it takes. Kind of earn some more sweat equity and earn their trust, because you don't have the playing resume where they're necessarily gonna buy into everything you do. And also with that kind of like I said, we had really good coaches, so try not to overstep by any means, but trying to kill any opportunity you have. So my first year, I ran the development program. So all the guys who were redshirting, I was basically working out and just trying to put as much thought and as much detail as I could just into those, hour workouts, which may not seem like a huge thing, but that was kind of my first on the court opportunity, and try to make sure those guys were able to contribute the next year, and make sure they're getting something out of it on the floor, learning the offense, learning the small wrinkles they'll need to know for next year, and kind of being able to be in the gym with those guys is kind of my first coaching opportunity, finding my voice a little bit. Um, and then year two was able to do a little more with, having a scout, or, a little more take the guards in this group or whatnot. So trying to find your voice in that regard. But again, luckily I had a lot of great coaches to learn from. And, at the end of the day, luckily over the course of those 3 years, I was able to learn basketball. So I was able to teach what I knew. Again, still learning. So it's not like I have all the answers by any means, but able to give enough to hopefully the guys buy in and understand that I know, a little bit of hoops to some degree at least.
For sure. I think it's crazy how much individual playing careers like don't really matter when it comes to actually coaching. Obviously, there's that plays a role and you gain experience that way, but I mean, really, that's just like at face value. Hey, this coach played here. Oh, okay, like obviously he knows something or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you like you were saying, put in sweat equity. You're there with them, you gain their trust, you have the right answers. And even when you don't, to be honest with them and be like, hey, let's go research, let's go watch film, let's go find that right answer. That's how you gain their trust. And that's how you get people to really buy in. And that's special. Rather than just, hey, just listen to whatever I say. I played, so and so. There's a big difference there. And coaching is very different from playing. It is not the same thing even though it's the same game. So, you could be a great player and not be a good coach. It's not as uncommon as it seems. Um, so you're at Texas A&M Commerce for a few years. Talk to us about your transition to Menlo. How did that all kind of happen? What was your role like at the beginning? And I assume it changed a little bit to where you are now.
Yes. So at the end of my 2 years in commerce, so I got my master's degree. Was looking for a new opportunity to really be, on the floor assistant coach, basically for the first time. I graduated with my master's in 2020, which, like we said earlier, just a time we all wish we could kind of forget. But so that was kind of a time. It was pretty stressful. A lot of jobs were being cut. We didn't even have a season in Menlo, but I was trying again reach out to all the connections I had. I was able to build some few more connections, just being on the recruiting scene. But the connection I had that got me in Menlo was Coach Rooney himself. I came home for a month during the summer at Commerce. I was recruiting kids in California and just going to all the events I could find within the month that I was home. And it seemed like every event that I was at, Coach Rooney was there. And there'd be some events, it was literally just me and Coach Rooney were the only two in the gym. So we're able to build a little relationship, just a mutual respect. Like, hey, we're both in the gym recruiting. There's a mutual respect being built from that regard. Kind of just each other's work ethics. So at the end, my 2 years, he actually had just gotten the job at Menlo. He was coming over from Cal Maritime, where he was the head coach beforehand. So I reached out right away and said, "Congrats! If your staff isn't set, would love to chat about opportunity or anything you might have." Which was, you have to put yourself out there a little bit, which is always a little uncomfortable. But luckily, his staff wasn't set. I was from the Bay Area, so I think that was something that was intriguing. Something I wanted to be back in the Bay Area. We had played at Menlo before, so I knew a little bit about Menlo and kind of the program they had, and had a lot of respect for it. And being in the Bay Area, I was kind of looking around like this could be a place, a few years I could see myself at. And the chance to work for Coach Rooney in a place like Menlo was awesome opportunity. It's something that I got super lucky with during, especially like I said, during COVID 2020. So the unfortunate part, we didn't have a season year one, but that was actually kind of good for me. I think that was the first time I really had a voice. Hey, you got the guards today. Hey, you got the bigs today. And there's probably less pressure. We didn't have games coming up. We were just trying to build that, like I said, try to build that sweat equity with now a new group and a whole new staff. So I think that was really good for me to be on the floor and be able to teach, and then being able to be ready for year one of playing, where hey, we're delivering scouts. Hey, this is what we got to be ready for. This is how we adjust and all that. And being able to learn from Coach Rooney and how he sees the game has been really beneficial as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, sweat equity doesn't always travel super well, especially when your stops aren't super long. So yeah, it definitely get to build that up and over again. Um, Tell us a little bit about your role there now. What is it looking like for you going into the season? We talk with Jordan a lot about what he's doing at Bushnell right now. Just getting ready. Guys are getting on campus and getting settled in, and kind of what workouts are looking like for you guys right now.
Yeah, so we are working out. So we got open gyms right now. Try to get the new guys all adjusted. And then we got a strength program. Guys are lifting a couple times a week and getting some plyometrics with our strength and conditioning staff. So we're not really instructing right now. Not a whole lot we could do on the floor, but once practice starts, we'll be full throttle, ready to go. So.
There you go. You kind of mentioned a little bit of youth coaching that you were doing down in the Bay Area. Tell me a little bit about that, because I know I've been coaching youth basketball for a little while now. I really enjoy it. I personally think anybody who wants to get into coaching should teach young kids first, because you really learn, oh, like my basketball knowledge is way farther than these kids, and I need to learn how to really dial it back to the very, very basics. So like learning and reteaching the very, very basics of basketball can help just really give you perspective again. And it's such a fun process to do. But tell me a little bit about your experience there.
Yeah, so I'm also coaching with a program out here called Team Misfaci. Like you mentioned, it's unbelievable experience because you are really challenging yourself as a teacher. Like you said, you can't go say set a pin down. You can't say that. Kids don't know what that is. So I kind of call that the curse of knowledge. I think I read that somewhere, where everything you know, you think everyone else knows, and college players might know it, but the youth level, you tell them go DHO, they're like, "What's that?" It's like, "Oh, dribble handoff," stuff like
Right.
that. So you really are
Right.
breaking it down to the skin and bones, the bare level. And I think that's an awesome opportunity that, like you said, I think every coach should do. Really test you as a teacher. Um, all these kids play hard; they're all good at kids, but you really got to be able to teach the basic fundamentals, kind of like you were saying. So, and it's also for me, it's been basically my first head coaching opportunity. So even stuff like using timeouts and sub patterns and all that, it's been my biggest on floor opportunity. Obviously, being a head coach, you gotta have a game plan for everything, subs, timeouts, kind of like I said. And at the end of the day, how well can you explain the basic stuff? You might go into the season with this huge game plan and you're struggling to throw an outlet pass. So, well, all right, let's break it down. Let's make sure we rebound, pivot, outlet, get it away from defense,
Right.
small stuff like that. But I think the only unfortunate part is you spend most of your time learning how to break a press and how to be a 2-3 zone in youth basketball, which it isn't the most fun, but hey, we get better at that too. So
Right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, you hit it. I mean, being a head coach in any program, there's like um there's similar tasks, similar things that need to be done across the board. Like you said, managing minutes, game plan, timeouts, all that stuff that but even, you would expect that the older kids get, the more self-mannered they become. They know how things kind of go, but with younger kids, you have to you have to be way more focused on the bench as well. So yeah, it's management to a T in
Yeah.
in my experience.
Well, one of the best things I've ever seen was someone, I can't remember where it was, or else I would shout them out. But I saw some video where someone said, "Explain how to make a PB and J." And we all know how to make a PB and J, but they had them write it out on a card. It was pretty funny. They took exactly what the person said on the index card. It was like, scoop some of the peanut butter, put the peanut butter on the bread. Well, now they take the jar of peanut butter, put it on the bread. They still got the scoop in their hand. It's like, well,
Right.
that's how you explained it. So it's stuff like that. You tell a kid to sit down defensively, you might go crisscross applesauce on you. So
Right.
it's a good experience though, for sure.
Right. Yeah, you definitely have to watch how you say things because they will definitely take it way too literally. But that's the joy of basketball as well with young kids. It's you get the joy of the game back, and yeah, it's a great time. Um, okay, so kind of zooming out for people who do not have a longer playing career, want to get into coaching at a high level. If that's high school, prep, college, like whatever that looks like, any level of high level basketball, but they don't have the playing resume. I mean, you spoke to it over and over again about your persistence about doing all the little things, sweat equity, not being afraid to put yourself out there. What are kind of some of your bigger talking points of advice for anybody who wants to be coaching but doesn't have that playing career to kind of give them that, um, that prerequisite to show off to coaches?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just how much can you give that has nothing to do with basketball. Like we've kind of said, whether it's laundry, whether it's helping rebounding for guys, just try to find an area where you can help a program in any capacity. And it's probably going to have to be for free at first. Obviously, I was lucky. I was in college at the time. I was at NCU, so I wasn't on the payroll by any means. But just being able to contribute anywhere where the coach just doesn't want to. If you're working, like you said, whether it's high school, college, further along, wherever that is, the head coach probably knows basketball. He probably knows what offense he wants to run, what defense he wants to run. What he probably doesn't want to do is the laundry. He probably doesn't want to book the travel for the weekend. He probably doesn't want to check on academics, do class checks, whatever that is. So it's how easy can you make the head coach's job? How much can you take off his plate so he can just coach basketball? If you do that, your head coach is going to be forever indebted. I like to say a lot of times that networking is kind of what you do for other people. Like if you're able to take a bunch of stuff off this head coach's plate for 2 years, well, now he's like, well, I've always want that guy in my corner. I want to help him out, whatever it is. So that's why still to this day, Luke will give me recommendations just because of what I did. What was that, 2016? He'll still be the first one on my resume, and people will call, and he'll still give a great recommendation just because of how much I poured into that program for 2 years. So I think the biggest thing is just to give as much as you can with, you know, and not expecting much basketball out of it for a few years. Like I said, my first on court opportunity of any time really was 3 years into this. So I think that'd probably be my biggest piece of advice, and just be willing to keep knocking on doors. And if that one doesn't open, find the next one. And like I said, sent out hundreds of emails and probably got 10 or fewer responses. So just keep grinding away at it, I guess.
There you go. Yeah, you just got to be a door-to-door salesman, be okay with lots of no's, and do all the stuff that the coach doesn't want to do. And that's super important. And um, all that stuff just shows that you're willing to do whatever it takes to win, and that you care. And that's what people are really looking for in a program. If you're a guy who's going to show up late and cut things short, but you supposedly have this genius basketball philosophy, doesn't always translate. So yeah, for all you coaches out there, find you guys a Cam. You guys need it. Make your lives easier. And we won, got some banners when he was at NCU, so obviously it worked. Um, anyway, thank you so much for coming on. That was fun. I always love to get someone like you on here that, took a path that not a lot of people get to take. And a lot of people that we have on here obviously kind of made a joke at the beginning and when we were on the phone yesterday about, this being the player to coach pod. But I mean, you had a few, rec league championships that we got to see you be a part of and all that good stuff.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, anybody can make a difference on a basketball team. You just got to be willing to put in the work, put in the sweat equity, and yeah, it can be done. So anyway, thanks for coming on.
No, appreciate you having me, man. Listen to a couple of these pods, and obviously Loomis and BT were at the top of the list, and guys that I still talk to this day. So keep doing some good work, man. I'm excited to keep listening.